Hi everyone, this is Kelly Cheatham, a digital learning specialist for Fort Worth ISD. In this week's tips and tricks video, we're going to talk about Google Meet. So we're going to cover 3 different aspects of Google Meet in our tips and tricks video today. The first one we're going to talk about is are the ways that you could schedule a Google Meet. So we're going to go over some of the advantages to each of those ways. In our second part, we're going to talk about the 3 different ways to share your screen and some of the reasons why you might want to use each of those options. And then lastly today, we're going to look at some extensions that could make Google Meet function better for you and your students. So let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, the first thing we're going to talk about are the different ways to schedule your Meet. There are 2 ways that we recommend doing this, and the way that you choose will depend on your teaching situation. So the first thing we could do is we could share what's called a nickname with our students. And so when you share a nickname with your students, you are just going to come up with some sort of identifying way that your students will find your Meet. So you want to choose a nickname that will be different from other teachers' nicknames, but easy for your students to type in. So for example, you might choose your last name and then your campus number. So if I were on campus 001, I might choose a nickname Cheatham 001. So if I were to do that, I'm going to share that information with my students ahead of time. I will tell them that they need to go to their Google Meet app, and they can find that on their ClassLink portal. And then they are going to join the Meet by entering that nickname. Now on my end, when it's time for my Meet to start, I will want to go to my Google Meet app. I'll click on that join button and I'll just enter that nickname. Okay. As soon as I click continue here, that will officially start the Meet for my students. They will not be able to join until I have done so or until another adult has done so. So it has to be a teacher that starts this Meet. That's important to keep in mind because if you have a co-teacher, your co-teacher could start the Meet before you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click continue here to start this Meet. Okay, you'll be prompted to test your camera. You can come in here and you can turn them on or off to begin with, and then when you're ready, you'll just join now. All right, and then on my student side, my student's going to then come in and he'll enter that same Meet nickname to join our Meet as well. Okay. Awesome. So the advantage to scheduling your Meet with a nickname is that you can have multiple classes join that same Meet. So this is a great way to do something like host your office hours. If you have a single class that you're meeting with at a time, the easier way to do this is probably to use the Google Classroom link. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that right now. So in Google Classroom, if you haven't already, you're going to need to turn on that Meet link. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my test class here. I already have mine turned on, and you know that because I see that Meet link in my Google Classroom header here. But if you do not see your Meet link there, to turn it on, you'll come up to your settings gear. You'll scroll down into your general section, and it's actually towards the bottom of that general section. You'll see the little section that says Meet here. You just want to make sure that you have turned on this Meet link, and then you'll want to make sure that it's visible to your students. Now, a helpful hint with this Meet link. This Meet link is actually using a nickname, and the nickname is found at the very end of the URL here. So you'll see that there's a combination of letters and numbers here. When I go ahead and I actually start my Meet, so again, you see that combination of letters and numbers. When I click on this link, you'll notice that those letters and numbers are not the same as the ones in my URL. So that is not the actual URL. Those numbers and letters differ. Instead, you'll notice that those letters and numbers here are actually in that nickname spot. So that's important for you to know. Every time you click on that link, it will generate a brand new Meet, but it will use this as the nickname. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I can join it as a teacher just using that link. And then as soon as I join it, this link is active, my students can now join. Prior to clicking on that link, my students would have received an error saying that they are unable to start a Meet, therefore they cannot join. So that's important for you to know as well. Again, if you have a co-teacher and your co-teacher clicks on that link, it is now active. Or if you have clicked on that link earlier in the day, it is now active and your students can potentially join. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to make sure that if you're going to click on that link, you are active in that Meet to make sure that you're able to monitor student behavior. All right, so those are the two different ways to start a meet. Again, if you're just meeting with a single class, they all have access to this link. If they're in your Google Classroom, that's probably the easier way to join. If you are trying to meet with multiple groups of students who are not all within the same Google Classroom, you will probably want to use the nickname method. All right, so now let's talk about the second part of our video today. We're going to look at the 3 different ways to present your screen. So now that I'm in this meet, I can go ahead and present the screen by clicking on this Present Now button. You'll notice that I have 3 different options for presenting my screen. My first option is to present my entire screen. This means that anything that I have on this computer screen is accessible or viewable by my students. So this is a great way if you wanted to show, for example, a flip chart. If you have that flip chart open on your computer screen, your students will be able to see it. Now, if you have something like your email open, keep in mind that if an email pops up, your students will be able to see that if you shared your entire screen. So that's a disadvantage to sharing your entire screen, just something to keep in mind. The second option is to share just a window, and this will ask you which window you'd like to choose. And so I'm going to click on that so we can look at that. So I actually have multiple windows open right now. The one I'm in is this first one. And if I click on this, I'll be able to share any tabs that I have open in this particular window. I could also share another program this way. So I have my sticky notes open, for example. If I wanted to show my students another program, I would choose that program from within the options here. So this is great if you just want to show them one program at a time. You want to make sure that all the others are hidden. This would prevent something like an email from popping up in the middle of your meet. Our final option is our Chrome tab. Now, this is the only option that will stream sound. So this is important. If you want to stream a video for your students and you want them to be able to hear the sound, you want to choose a Chrome tab, and it will make sure that that sound pushes them to them as well. Now, when I do this, though, I have to choose an individual Chrome tab. So I have 3 open on this particular browser. I would choose the Chrome tab I wanted to share. So let's say I wanted to share my test class tab here. Okay. And now I am showing this tab, and I know that's the tab I'm sharing because I see that little rectangle pop up. If I click on any other tabs, my students are not seeing what I'm seeing. They are only seeing this particular tab. So if I want to share something with them, I want to make sure I'm doing it within this tab. So I can now go to YouTube, for example, and I'm still sharing the screen. Notice also that I have this little blue rectangle around the screen, and that helps me to know. So I can come in here and I can share a video with my students. I can stream it for them. Okay. Now, if I wanted to share another video, I would want to make sure that I navigate to that video within this same tab, or else I'm going to have to go ahead and unshare my screen and reshare again. So again, if you want to share sound, you want to make sure that when you click Present Now, you choose a Chrome tab. If you want to share just a single program, you can choose a window. And if you want to show multiple programs and you want to kind of toggle between, you want to choose your entire screen. All right, the final thing we're going to talk about in this tips and tricks video are some extensions that might be helpful to you. So I have 4 extensions that I want to share with you today. The first one allows you to see more of your students within the actual view than you can just using Meet. Now, quick note, Meet is updating any day now with some awesome new features. One of them is the ability to see more students, I think up to 49 students, so that should be plenty for most of you. So this extension may not be useful in the near future, but in the meantime, there's an extension called Grid View. Now, Grid View just released a brand new version called Grid View Fix, and that's the one you will want to install. And once it's installed, you notice you get this little grid here up at the top. So right now my grid view is turned off, and I know that because there's a line through it. If I want to turn it on, all I need to do is click on it, and that line will go away. Now, as my students join, I'll be able to see all of them on my screen at once. You also might have noticed that you have some options. If you hover over that grid, you can go ahead and you can turn on some of these options if you wanted to. So lots of great things there. Again, this is Grid View Fix, and I'll share this link with you in the email today. The second one I want to talk about is called Nod Reactions. This one is something that you may want to suggest your students install as well. And what that does is it allows your students to go ahead and give you nonverbal feedback throughout your meet. So your students can come in and they can give you a thumbs up, they can clap, they can do things like that. They also have the ability to raise their hand. And this is really cool because when a student raises his hand, it will stay over here in this bottom left-hand corner for you until you click and make it go away, or your student clicks and makes it go away. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join this meet from a student side. Actually, I'm looking at that and it doesn't look like he has nod reactions anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and install his nod reactions. So I'm going to pause our video and start again in just a second. All right, so my student has now installed the extension. He's going to go ahead and join our meet. Okay. All right, so on my student end, I just want to show you, you'll notice that he has the same options here because he has installed this extension. So on his end, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to give a thumbs up. Okay. And then we're going to look at what that looks like on my end. I'm going to move my picture out of the way here. So he's going to give a thumbs up. And you'll notice that we get a little pop-up over on the left-hand side. Now notice that that one disappears, but watch what happens when he raises his hand. Okay, so we'll notice that we get this little memo over here, and that's going to stay there until I go ahead and I exit out, or he can also do that on his end. So if he has a question, this is a great way for him to go ahead and virtually raise his hand and then wait until I'm ready to ask for him to unmute and ask his question out loud. So that raise hand feature is a really big bonus. Again, this one is a little bit tricky because your students will have to install the extension as well. All right, our next extension that I want to talk about today is an attendance extension. You'll notice that down by my camera view and my microphone icon down here, I have this little check mark. And this little check mark is actually an extension that's taking attendance. So as my students enter the meet, it is automatically collecting their names here. And then when our meet is over with, you'll notice actually in my download bar, I already have some. When I end the meet, it will automatically download, in this case, 2 files. I'll get an HTML file as well as a spreadsheet file with the list of students that were present in my meet. So that's a really great way to kind of keep track of who was there for your attendance keeping purposes. All right, our final extension that I want to talk about is our extension that allows us to split our screen. And it's called Duelists. And you'll notice that that is located up in my extensions bar here. It looks like 2 little windows here. So when I click on this, it gives me some options for how I want to split my screen, so what kind of a ratio I want to see. But this is a great way if you want to be able to present your screen and see your students at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to choose this 4x6. And notice that it automatically kind of fixed my screen so that I'm seeing 2 separate Chrome windows at the same time. So now I can come into my Meet window here, and I can go ahead and I can share my screen from here, but I'll want to show this. And this allows me to still see my Meet window and still see my students and maybe the chat, while also looking at whatever I want to show them on this screen. So if you don't have a second monitor, this is a great alternative. Again, that's called Dualists, and all of these links will be sent to you in our email today. So that's it for our tips and tricks today. In the future, I'll be sending a video about how to make breakout rooms if that's something you're interested in, and then some extensions that are helpful for that. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave it at those 3 big things. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.